Properties of logarithms. Let's take a minute to do a quick review of something we've already learned. On the left, we have a table that lists the properties of exponents. Let's review each one of those briefly. For the product rule, if you have two terms multiplied together with the same base, but different exponents, that's equal to the same base raised to the sum of the two exponents. And the quotient rule tells us that if you're dividing two terms that have the same base, but different exponents, that's equal to the base raised to the power of the difference of those two exponents. The power rule says that if you have a base raised to a power, and that entire thing is raised to a power, it's the same thing as that base raised to the product of those powers. The power of product rule states that the product of two different bases raised to the same power is equal to base 1 raised to that power times base 2 raised to that same power. And then the power fraction rule states that if you have two bases divided by one another and the entire thing is raised to a power, that's equal to base 1 raised to that power divided by base 2 raised to the same power. And then of course the zero exponent rule states that any base raised to the power of 0 is equal to 1. And finally the negative exponent rule states that if you have a base raised to a negative power, that's the same thing as 1 divided by that base raised to the positive power. So now that we've reviewed those, let's cover properties of logarithms. The properties of logarithms are as follows. The log base a of x and y is equal to the log base a of x plus the log base a of y. The log base a of x over y is equal to log sub a of x minus log sub a of y. And the log sub a of x raised to the power of y is equal to y times log sub a of x. The identities below deal with natural logarithms, and these are denoted by ln, and the base of these is a number called e, which we'll talk about coming up. But these are as follows. The natural log of x times y is equal to the natural log of x plus the natural log of y, and the natural log of x divided by y is equal to the natural log of x minus the natural log of y. And finally, the natural log of x raised to the power of y is equal to y times the natural log of x. There are a few additional rules we need to cover, and we'll talk about these in more detail when we see some examples and work sample problems. The first of these is that log base e of x is equal to the natural log of x. And we mention that here because ln is just a way to denote natural logarithms, so there's no confusion when you're working problems. Another is that the natural log of 1 is equal to 0. The natural log of e is equal to 1. And the natural log of e raised to the power of x is equal to x. And lastly, we need to know that if you wish to change the base of a logarithm, say you have log sub a of x, and you wanted to change the base to 10, for example, you could write log sub b of x divided by log sub b of a. In doing this, you'll get the same result. Let's break here. When we come back, we'll see how to solve some problems using properties of logarithms.